Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today, I'll be taking a look at the newly released Cuddy Cuddy Cuse number 43, an awesome little anthology book. You can see it's very tiny. That's one of the things I really like about the Cuse books is they're these nice tiny little things that you can take with you. This is supported by the Latvian State Cultural Capital Foundation, so it's a Latvian production, but all the stories are in English. And you always get a really international spread of cartoonists here. I think they're all supposed to be people who live in the Baltic region because it's called Baltics Comic Magazine number 47, but that's what this is. I'm not sure exactly all who they count, but it's a pretty wide spread of cultures people are coming from, so that makes it really cool. And then each one of these is based on a theme. So the theme of issue 47 is obsession, and I'll just go through and give a sense of each one of the artists that's in here because it's a very cool book. I think you should check it out. A lot of cool stories. They're all very short, but they are centered on the topic of obsession. So here you have Harukichi. This is just about people like diving for albums, or you could translate that to the kind of obsessive comics going through like we like to, looking at books. So that's obsession in that regard. Here you have a story by Romana Ruban, who is someone that's obviously been displaced because of the war in Ukraine and is really having to take a look at what things are necessary in life. Just like you got to leave your country with what can you put in a backpack, and then is now living in Berlin and is finding these kind of like, here's some free stuff, take 'em boxes, and has become obsessed with those because she needs stuff, and then also is getting stuff for friends. And this is a cool little list of all the things that have been gotten for free out of these boxes in Berlin. So a pretty sad story, an interesting one. This is by Giovanna Fabi, just an obsession with fashion. Love the grid, love the working on the grid, the geometry, the compositions there are really cool. This is Alberta Ziemele. This one, I'm not sure what they're obsessed about. It changes from page to page, but I really like the zoom in on stuff, like these little small things. Not microbes, but small things. I think that's what it's about, but I like the diagrammatic look of it. Sara Priorelli, really cool artist here. Obviously looks like they're obsessed with breasts, but enjoy the style a lot of nice clean line work and nice coloring there. Here you have Dora Grents. This is someone who's obsessed with having the perfect bed. They would not be happy in my house because our dogs are on our bed all the time, and this person's very obsessed with having a tidy, clean bed. This, I think, was just visually one of my favorites. I thought this was funny. The Madara Krezina, doing this person just getting buffer and buffer while this balloon dog is being twisted up. So I've always called when students do sketching where they do like there's the arm like this, I call them sausage people or balloon people, sausage people, either one. And this is perfect because this is like a sausage person, and then this is like a little sausage balloon person dog down there, and the visuals sync up very well. Then, as always excited to find some Gareth Brookes in the things that I buy. And here's another Gareth Brookes. From following Gareth on Instagram, it looks like this is his latest kind of material mode of exploration he's been doing. I've got one book from him like this already, and two more coming on the way. And I think what he's doing is working with paper towels and things that really bleed through. So trying to get images, because Gareth always seems to be interested in the interface of things, like working on both sides. When he's doing embroidering, you oftentimes see both sides of it in his books. And so he's using that to get like a Rorschach effect. But I also think like drawing on the front and back of things and inking and folding napkins, those are all strategies that Gareth is using and getting content out of it. And so again, you get like this kind of someone being obsessed with someone else, and you get these haunting ghostly images from the other side of the napkin, or however it works that he's making these. But really cool looking art. This was probably my favorite piece in the book, or my favorite new find of an artist, is Matt Blue. Really like the art in this one. I mean, it's really cool to look at. And then extra stunning that when I went to go look up Matt Blue on Instagram, These are all hand painted. I thought these were digital illustrations. They look like little, vector graphics or Photoshop drawings, but there was video or photos of Matt Blue working on this page here with, it looked like gouache, hand painting this all with gouache, which really, really stunning to me. I would not have noticed that, but once I do know it, when I'm looking at some of the pages, I can see like a variation, a mild variation in some places, very few, but like right here, there's some mild variation in the color that's like, oh crap, this is all hand painted. Okay. So very, very impressive art. It looks like this is maybe the first comic that Matt Blue has done, so I'm very excited about seeing what else this artist does. Hopefully they're not just an illustrator, but someone who is committed to comics. Francisco Sousa Lobo. This is a really interesting piece here is called God as a Cartoonist. So just talking about how religion and the conception of God is both good and bad for people. You have a one-page story here by Vivianna Maria Stanislavska, just a kind of little quick joke. This here is Simone Malinowsky. There we go. This is like the worst video for me with all these foreign names, one right after the other. Most of this I didn't like much. This seemed a little simple, but I really, really like this page because of the complex interplay between negative space and positive space that wasn't so intense on the other pages. So really enjoyed that one. This is a piece by Yina Kim about stealing a chainsaw, I think. Don't know what the obsession there was. Tools, I guess. Baby's Badass Tool Collection. This is another artist I really liked. Namsai Khaobor. Khaobor. Just really like the style. Some material things that really, really are interesting to me on there. Lucy Haslam. This, I think, is the artist besides Matt Blue who shows the most potential to me in the book. And this is the person that when I looked them up had the most comics on her feed on Instagram. A lot of other people just had the comic that was in this book, or hardly anything else at all. This is someone who's doing a lot of comics. So an artist you can see compositionally just doing some really cool stuff, doing some really fun stuff with materials, and really, really curious to read more of Lucy Haslam's art. This is by Jana Ribkina, and it's basically a discussion about the difference between addiction, obsession, and love. And there's some interesting kind of definitions that are laid out in here. This is Nilda Miltell, someone who's talking about the way that Twilight basically ruined a whole generation's idea of romance. I think that was a smart sentiment. And then also like this junior high girl cut out all these collaged in faces with stars and hair drawn on and everything, obsessing about Robert Pattinson, I think is pretty funny within context of the story. Not my favorite art throughout, but I think this was a really good story. This here by Goda Trakumaite, Trakumaite, Trakumaite. I don't know. Sorry, guys. This is definitely about someone who's got OCD. They're trying to leave the house and they're just going back and, are you ready? Are you turning? Like all these things that have to be done. And just the kind of intense representation of, the uncomfortable parts about that obsession. So I think this one is probably the best representation of obsession throughout the book. This uncontrollable thing that takes hold of you. I think this is the most on-target piece in the book. Then we have a piece here by Paspoach. This one was strange. There's some stuff about the style I kind of like, but it seems unresolved. It also seems like it was drawn with a mouse or something. It seems very haggard and janky. It feels mouse drawn to me, which may be a purposeful thing, but it's just about someone who loves their baseball bat, so I didn't get the story there. This is by Maria Mam, kind of a cutesy little watercolor manga looking thing. Didn't quite get the story there. Then this is a Lina Ghaiben, and this is about her son, who seems to maybe have autism and like gets obsessed with Africa and wrestling and kind of mixes those things together in his head. And then sadly, it seems, if this is a true story, it seems like he was mentally ill and just wandered into the woods and disappeared. So a very visually powerful story, and a kind of emotionally intense story as well. But really enjoyed some of these more sparse images like this in that one. And then here we have Jodie Wilders basically talking about obsession in general, all the different things that Jodie is obsessed with, making lists, making great drawings, being a perfectionist, that kind of stuff. So really, really cool book. Lots of great art, lots of great new artists. I think Gareth was the only artist in this book that I've heard of before. So I found a number of new artists to follow up on, which is always what I'm excited about in anthologies, or getting that, rare thing from the person you really like that's not going to show up anywhere else. But really, it's finding artists like Matt Blue, finding artists like Lucy Haslam. That's really what I get out of, especially something like the Koos books, where they have such an international scope of artists that they're looking at. I think to me, this is the stuff where the future of comics is made. And there's a lot of back issues of Koos that you can get. And then Koos also has on their website a lot of digital downloads for things that are no longer in print. So you can get a pretty complete span. They don't have everything, but you can get a pretty complete span of what they've done and the artists that they've engaged with, even though you can't necessarily buy all their stuff anymore. So another one of those companies, smaller companies, but they just have a mission that I think is really valuable to the medium that we all love. Not to the industry. I don't think this is an industry concern thing. It's a medium concern thing. And people who are treating comics as art and a valuable, activity to be engaged in, and that the monetary and industry aspects of it are important to keep that going, but not the primary thing. I think those are the publishers that I like the best, and these Koos magazines really seem to have that ethic behind them. So really something worth supporting. Go get a few of these, go download all the back catalogs, and find yourself some awesome artists. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel, getting exposed to books like this, we really appreciate your support. There's two ways to do that. The first is through our Patreon. We have 2 tiers of engagement on there. At the first one, you just get early access to our videos. The second tier, you get exclusive access to previews of private art projects, graphic novel projects that Sean and I are working on. You also can participate in our ongoing web experiment, Pranay, where you can vote to help determine what happens in the story. So that higher tier, it has some really cool interactions for you. Any of the money that we make off of the Patreon just goes back into helping pay for the books that we review. We really appreciate that, and just try and turn it around into other people's pockets. So if you want to support Living the Line itself, money that stays with us, helps our families, then the best thing to do is support what Sean's doing with Living the Line Publishing. So we'll go ahead and take a look at one of his projects now. Sala ni Yellow, Path of the Shades by Clarence Doss is a really cool ongoing project that Living the Line will be producing. Clarence is a PhD student from Fiji who's studying the myths of Fiji for his doctoral thesis. And part of that study project is that he's producing these comics. They're kind of like Hellboy, where there's these little short stories that capture all of these different mythologies. But then he's using that to wrap the project into his doctoral thesis, and then provide educational material where people can come to these comics. They don't have to read his PhD thesis. They can come to the comics and get a more consumable version of the mythology of Fiji. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.